My name is Sili Adelibibe of Marital First.
You refer to me as sir.
Yes, you occupy that position.
Doesn't matter. My gender is female.
Correction.
Until yesterday, we were told that Bank 8 in Port Harcourt collapsed. We were also made to understand that that very bank was allocated to a highly influential constitution member. My question is this, man. As a form of determination to ensure that people don't just treat your facilities with levity, what decisive measures do you want to take using this case study as a reference point to ensure that this is not encouraged? God bless you.
Thank you.
Question 2.
No, I know. I'm saying that we answer one by one.
No problem, please.
Just drinking. Okay, thank you very much for your question.
Yes, ma'am.
We have seen the collapsed berth, and as I mentioned, it's not acceptable for any terminal operator not to comply with the provisions of the concession agreement, whereby you're required to deploy infrastructure deployment. We will take the effective requirement as it relates to any penalty clauses and termination clauses as required.
Question 2. Ajay. Yes. Nan. Please identify yourself.
I'm the head of Maritime Intelligence of Investigation in Nigeria and an assistant editor. You have been talking about plugging the revenue leakages.
Yes.
And trying to put all resources, all the revenue into the TSA.
Yes.
But I discovered that the oil and gas operators, there seems to be disparity in payment of levies. And this disparity is a drain on national revenue. What is NPA doing to harmonize payment of levies by oil and gas operators? Then secondly, the night piloting. Is it that the Eastern Port, there are no boats on the Eastern Port for night piloting to take place, like as it is in Lagos Port? These are my questions.
Okay. As we mentioned regarding revenue leakages, we're working to have all revenues that are meant for the federal government to go into the Treasury single account. We have commenced that program with the collection of service board charges, which we'll be doing with effect from next month, where all payments will come to NPA as an entity, and NPA would be the one to review all provisions of those payments. NPA would issue the invoice. NPA would lead on collection of those revenues. We've noted historic provision where a service provider is leading payments are made to the service provider. That is not acceptable to us going forward. All payments will be made directly to NPA. NPA will reconcile its account and then make any payments due to the service provider would be paid to them after NPA has collected it directly. This is the first of the many steps towards ensuring that all the revenue leakages are plugged. This is the first step in ensuring that such payments, as you mentioned, that there's disparity in revenue collections and disparity in mode of collection would be effected within the shortest period.
The next question is number 3.
My name is Colin Rochelle.
Yes.
I work with you did said you were going to review your partnership or contract with African Circle, because the way the contract was done was skewed towards African Circle having a bigger chunk of the pie. Now, beyond African Circle, are you also going to look into other partners like NGOs and others?
We're looking at all such agreements. We're looking at every agreement that exists between NPA and an operator and a service provider. As regards African Circle, what I mentioned is that we're going to look at the deployment of the infrastructure that they're required to do vis-a-vis the agreement. One, to determine if they have done those deployments as required, and to determine if the revenue sharing formula as provided is beneficial to the government. But first, have they deployed as stipulated in the agreement? Have they provided all that infrastructure? Then we go to the next stage to determine that revenue sharing formula, is it beneficial to the government? Is this what we believe should come to the coffers of federal government of Nigeria? And indeed, all agreements, particularly agreements that have revenue sharing formula with the authority, agreements that are our joint venture agreements, our concession agreements, we all need to relook at them to take into consideration where we find ourselves as a country now. We are going through an economic downturn. Some of these provisions were signed at the point where Nigeria had a very buoyant economy. So we need to appreciate where we find ourselves today and take certain critical decisions. As we refer to Intels, one of the immediate revenue plugging measures that we started is to ensure Intels as the service provider for collection of service board pays directly to federal government, as opposed to what it historically used to do, where it collects the money into their own coffers. So this is one of the first and continued steps towards reviewing several agreements that we have found in place.
Okay, yeah.
Madam, two questions actually.
No, one.
It's okay.
No. Impression about what you've done and what you're going to do. That's one, and two. No two.
Don't leave him to say it. Quick.
Thank you very much, madam.
Yes.
Second question is that midstream cargo discharge has been a problem in Nigeria, and some people actually use that to change government.
Yes.
What are you doing about that, madam?
On midstream, we're conducting a review to determine what the provision would be for NPA. We're looking at safe anchorage areas where the NPA will provide safe anchorage areas to enable such. The first question was?
Yes, so impression about the thing.
Oh, impression. I've come to Onne. I've looked at the facilities. The port manager and the operations here are very tidy. We have seen deployment of infrastructure efficiently and effectively. I have concerns about the lease agreements that NPA has entered into. Some of the lease agreements are not enabling the lessees take possession of their premise. They have not taken possession of the land, so they're not making any payments to the authority. So while we lease out land to developers, we are not able to ensure the developers take access to their premise. So that's one of the important takeaways from this visit. In addition, there are respective payments and respective infrastructure deployments that we need to do. I've inspected on a 4B project. We're looking at what we need to do within the shortest period to ensure that that project, whatever government has deployed towards building of on a 4B, will be taken into commercial activity within the shortest period. We've deployed millions of dollars to a project which is at 24% completion, but that 24% completion stage needs to be utilized commercially while decision is taken on the state, the government will take on completing the project.
Yeah. The tide now.
The tide. What they want to do?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Yes, one of the issues that people mentioned is that there's a little bit of a security prop challenge here. And we know that the port is a security zone. And we know that port pass is issued out to people. So how do you intend to enhance security at the port?
Enhancing security at the port is one of the priority areas we've discussed today, actually. We're looking at how we can improve the current position. We're looking at how new access cards will be issued where people are able to verify who they are long term. The current port access card is not sufficient. We've had the need to review that in totality. We believe that all service providers and operators within the port needs to have one standard pool where they would have their certification for access. That one pool has not been created. Port passes are issued at random. We need to create that, have people's biometrics. That would enhance the process and ensure that there is complete compliance to ISPS code.
Tide.
Yeah. I am.
Identify yourself.
Yes. I am Sugoba Jacobo. I work for the Tide newspaper. My question is, we are aware that NPA has invested millions of dollars in Port Harcourt ports, in Port Harcourt port infrastructure in Onne, including facilities to handle FPSO. But we have the video reports that says that the NPA is indirectly poised to invest monies in non-governmental owned facilities. If it is true, why?
The NPA would not invest money into private entities. NPA would invest money into an infrastructure that would be owned by NPA. Several modes of investment we've done are to do with amortization, concession, where infrastructure is built and there's a reversionary period to NPA. So any such information is incorrect as relates to utilizing our premise for FPSO. These are the things that we're looking at. To the extent that we have an existing infrastructure that can take that on, we would utilize it. We would prioritize our infrastructure, we would prioritize the commercial utilization of any facility that NPA has deployed resources towards. She'll get another question because she's female.
You are lucky.
Just one question.
I'm not a female.
Yes, you get a question.
I'm not a female, so no problem.
All right, now. My name is Ifunanya.
You have what? You do you.
A female.
Ma, what would you consider to be the greatest challenge NPA is facing since you came on board?
The biggest challenge is instituting transparency and good governance in our operations. I'm keen to ensure that every operations we do are transparent, our operational procedures are transparent, our pricing and tariff regimes are transparent for everyone to see. Operational efficiencies in terms of being a competitive port is critical. We're looking at our competitive position as it relates to financing, as it relates to our pricing regime, and also competition on operational procedures across the West African coast and in Africa. We need to ensure that we meet up to our competitive position on operations and financing. So these are some of the priority challenges that we're facing, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to resolve this within the shortest period.
All right, my question.
TBC.
My name is Ifunanya. I report for Television Continental. I know that we've been hammering on the issue of revenue generation.
Yes.
I want to bring your mind back to what the meeting you held with the staff at the Port Harcourt, your Port Harcourt office. An issue was raised about pilotage,
yes,
contracting into a third party, and at the end of the day, they pay you $200,
yes,
and they keep $800 to themselves. I mean, how do you reconcile this and ensure that you get to what you're supposed to do?
No, we're reviewing all those relationships. It's ongoing. We're going to review to ensure that all such payments that are skewed in favor of a service provider are stopped. We're mindful of the fact that there needs to be synergy and there's an overlap whereby that service is being provided, and we're reviewing the relationship to ensure that those payment terms are looked into. So that is something that is ongoing.
Thank you.
No more questions?
Thank you.
No one asked me about BUA. No one asked me about termination of BUA, so I'm asking myself and I'm talking about it.
Okay, hold on. Listen to what?
So I find it interesting that we were out with all of you.
Yes, ma'am.
And a concession was set to commence termination process, and none of you saw fit to ask me about that.
So, Dele, can you
That is not right.
Okay,
But you should have been specific to it.
it's okay. Please make it.
Eh.
Okay, can I ask that? Okay, ask the question.
I'm the one asking myself. You people have not been fair to me.
But the fact is that beyond BUA, madam, there are other terminal operators who have also violated the concession agreement like BUA.
Which I have said that all of such. No, you see, it's interesting you raised that question, because when the memo on BUA came to my table, I said approved to proceed and ensure that every other such concessionaire that is violating should also be brought up for the same approval. So that is the position that I gave, the directive I gave in the office over 2 weeks ago when the document on BUA came to my table. So all termination issues, all penalties are across the board to every terminal operator.
And for NPA, who has also breached part of the contract,
Yes.
what happens to NPA?
NPA 2 is now, as I've mentioned, we have several areas we have not obliged. I'm looking at areas where people have paid us for a service that we have not provided, and people are paying us for services we are not providing. I'm looking at that to remove that component, because we cannot continue charging people for service that we're not providing.
Are you going to refund money?
Well, I'm not sure about refunding money. We're still looking at the numbers, but what's important is to know that you cannot keep charging people for services that you're not providing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So that's why you are hiding more. That's not good. After someone paying you.
Yeah, the cameraman want to ask.
Shall ask.
I got the video. It's being a camera that cameras come.